And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Signal Caller. I'm your host Dwayne Douglas, along with, it's May the 4th. We're gonna bring in the Darth Vader of Rare Nation. Uh,
You know it.
Solo,
I am Darth Solo. Let's go. Let's go.
Solo Lopez here.
Give me all the
Um,
smoke. I'll take every single bit of smoke. I'll take it all. Give it all.
POR SBR is my Twitter handle, and then Solos is the Solo Lopez. So check that out on Twitter if you dare. Listen, it's hard being truth tellers in this game of Rare Nation here. So we'll just try to do what we can do here. So I've talked a couple of times about the draft. Bowers, Powers, Glaze, Richardson, Eichenberg, Lobby, and then we got Taylor and um, Devonshire.
Devonshire.
Devonshire. So, what are your thoughts about it? I've already had a couple shows about the Raiders draft already. What are
hmm
your thoughts about it? So,
So I gave the Raiders a C plus grade for the draft, and I know that people are going to look at that and be like, "We got a generational prospect at tight end. We got Powers Johnson, who I had in my live draft." And for those that don't know, I do a live draft every single year for the NFL draft, and what that is every year for the Raiders, when they're on the clock, I choose a player that I would take in that circumstance where they're at. I don't do a mock draft off the side and then be like, "Let's let the chips go how they may." I actually like to do the live draft, pick from the pool of players that are available to me at that moment that I think are the best fits for the team. And Powers Johnson in the second round, JPJ was literally the only live draft player in that round that I've had that lined up with mine with my pick for the Raiders in the last like 6 years. The last one was Khalil Mack in the first round in 2014, which is I think still to this day the best draft that the Raiders have had. This century really. But yeah, so I gave it a C plus, and I understand that people are really excited about Brock Bowers. I get that. I understand that people are excited about JPJ. Some people like Delmar Glaze. I wasn't one of them. I didn't really like the Richardson pick either. He didn't have a single takeaway in his entire college, in his entire college career. He didn't have a single interception. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's, the team he plays on. He might be doing his job better than other people. I tend to see it right in the middle. I think that he wasn't really like an outstanding defensive back, but there's a prototype of a guy that fits like the pure defensive back that has that type of size and speed. That if you can get him to defend and tackle and do the things necessary for it to be a quality defensive back, then he's just going to have an added advantage of being able to be that much bigger and that much stronger and faster than a lot of other defensive backs. So I see the upside. I'm not really a big fan of Eichenberg. I know that people really like him because he's like a carbon copy of Robert Spillane. I understand, but at the same time, the box linebacker and the downhill linebacker situation, I get it for the run game, but the game is just not played that way anymore. So if you bring in a guy who really can't cover that mid range and that intermediate, and granted, you're not going to find a whole lot of linebackers out of college that can cover right away, or in the NFL for that matter as well. But at the same time, you still have to try to find that mold of player that can cover the intermediate range, or else, we're in the era of the tight end now. We had 6 tight ends go last year in the top 40 picks, I believe. We had another, 4 tight ends go in the first, three rounds this year. It's like there are teams now that are taking that position, including the Raiders pick. And they've taken 2 tight ends in the top second 2 rounds in the last 2 years. And someone said that's the first time in like since the 90s or something like that. So it's like it doesn't happen often, but now we're in the era of the tight end where that split end 12 personnel set using 2 tight ends, using one as an inline receiver, possibly one is a play action receiver, one is a split out receiver. He's a matchup nightmare for people. So taking a linebacker that can't really cover, didn't really do it well in college, is not really my idea of a great pick. Trey Taylor and Devonshire are kind of like dart throws. Trey Taylor's actually better. He has a much higher upside than I think than Devonshire and probably Richardson, if I'm being honest. He's a Thorpe Award winner. You don't really see Thorpe Award winners go in the 6th round. But we're in a different state now with the type of defense that is being played in college versus the upside to the offensive. And just a testament to that is seeing how the first round went when we didn't have a defensive player go until pick 15, which has never happened before in the history of football. So overall, I gave it a C plus. Now this is a decent draft if you don't in a vacuum. All right, so it could be a B minus, B plus draft at the end when this is all said and done. But the major issue is once again We have to look at everything the Raiders do from the prism of they refuse to draft a quarterback. And now we did an entire show, the Signal Caller. We did all that analysis and we stressed it every single show. The Raiders have to take a quarterback if they want to be contemporary with the rest of the NFL. They choose not to do so, and they get the results they get because of those choices, because of the idea that you reject the quarterback position as a premium position, as the rest of the NFL does. Every other team in the NFL does. If you do not play by those types of rules, at the very least, those types of rules, then you're just going to be in the same spot every year. And we're going to have the same exact situation year in and year out. Now, if you want to believe in AOC and Gardner Minshew, that's on you. We're all entitled to do so. I don't. I want a franchise quarterback. I want a guy that they can hand the reins off to. I don't want a stopgap. And by the way, neither did Antonio Pierce. As it turns out, that was BS because the Band-Aid are the two guys that we have now. If you want to tell me that AOC is going to be Kirk Cousins, fine. That's your prerogative to do so. But if we get a situation where we're 8-9 heading into the 2025 season or 2025 off season, we're going to be in the exact same situation we've been in for 4 years. And that'll be the third straight offseason after Derek Carr that the Raiders have not addressed the quarterback position with a younger asset in the top round or the top or in the top 45 picks. It's just a major issue. And so everything they do has to be viewed through that because the further they get away from doing that, the more so they're going to fall behind the teams that do every year. And that's the situation this year. Denver took a first-round quarterback. Chargers have Justin Herbert. And the Chiefs have the best quarterback and the best player in football who plays the quarterback position. Every other AFC team has first-round quarterbacks or have done so in the last few years. It's just a matter of falling behind so far that you just refuse to do the idea because, I don't know, you think you're smarter than somebody else, you have the time, whatever it is. So overall, if you don't take a quarterback, you're just wasting everybody's time. And thus, that's what the Raiders have done. They didn't even take a quarterback at all in the draft. So they believe in Gardner Minshew, $25 million over 2 years, $15 million guaranteed, or they believe in Aiden O'Connell. Me personally, I think Gardner's going to win the starting job, and then we'll probably see Aiden O'Connell in one of those games in the stretch. And like everybody, the old adage always says, and we've repeated on these shows before, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yes. I mean, I feel like I'm not. I mean, I think people are gonna people are gonna think that we're just beating a dead horse.
Yeah,
So
we are.
I
mean,
mean,
we really are.
we are, and unfortunately, the Raiders have been that dead horse.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm not sure why people can't see the other side of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have not put assets in to this position in forever.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why people just don't want to try it the other way. Like,
Yeah.
you're literally, this is not about making a playoff run in the last month of December and
In the hunt.
in the hunt and having a road playoff game at Cincinnati. Like that you're most likely not going to win. Like, it's not about that game. It's about going to AFC Championship games. It's about going to the Super Bowl. It's about beating 15. Everything you do is about beating 15. He has one of the best general managers in the game. He has one of the best coaches in the game. It takes a lot to beat them. And even when you play them even, the Niners played them even, Steven, and probably might have had a better team those years.
They did have the better team.
But who made the play when the game was on the line?
And who made the drive? Yeah.
And that's Patrick Mahomes. So, like, we can talk trash about Harbaugh with Herbert. We can talk trash about Knicks and the Broncos, but I'm not worried about. I mean, like, you got to be chasing 15. If you're not doing something to beat 15, then what's the point? I made on the Put on Raiders show, I made the comment like, hey, like, look at Josh Allen. He came into the league. He had his deficiencies in his game. He got to a level where he could contend with Mahomes. Like, every time he's played Mahomes in the playoffs, it's been Mahomes beaten by this much. Like, every time. So, like, I mean, you can develop a quarterback who can develop into a guy who can contend with Mahomes rather quickly if you do it correctly. So that's something to think about as well. And like my model this whole draft was Penix was going to go way before 44, and
Yeah.
the fact that like it was going to take more. It just took one team, and
Hmm.
one it was that one team that happened to be Atlanta. Now people want to talk trash about Atlanta, say whatever you want. I'll say this: if Atlanta had Bill Belichick, they wouldn't have either quarterback. Number one. Number two,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fault somebody who puts resources into the quarterback position because they sat through did Desmond Ritter and they said enough.
Yeah.
They wouldn't spend that money. It's probably gonna be a 2-year contract and then it's Penix time. And I think
Yeah.
DJ Glaze better be good because DJ Glaze better be Lincoln Kennedy because
You mean Delmar Glaze?
no, yeah, whatever it is. It's DJ over here. It's DJ over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he better be good because at that situation at that point, I was like, hey, that's a good spot for Blake Corum. They didn't try to Blake Corum.
Yeah.
They didn't trade the third pick. I mean, the third round pick for possibly getting JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix. So
Hmm.
you got to hope both of those guys are bad too. Like interesting times here because this is a good physical draft where they did in spots did some good things, but again, how can you give an A when your quarterback is Gardner Minshew or your quarterback
Yeah.
is Aiden O'Connell?
Yeah. You can't. That's the whole scope of the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. We just can't really, we can't really view any transaction through the prism of only in a vacuum any longer, because you start stacking up situations where it becomes like, this is in a vacuum, it's a good move. This is in a vacuum and it's a good move. But then the other previous moves that you made just strictly in a vacuum, it doesn't have a vision or a plan that involves a quarterback position. Those start falling off the wayside. Look at the 2019 draft. After the 2019 draft, which reminder, I did not call a very good draft. I got killed that draft, killed, because 8 months later, everybody's talking about, look at Hunter Renfrow, look what Max Crosby did, look at Josh Jacobs. Cleveland Farrell is going to come along. Don't worry. John Abrams is going to be there. Trayvon Mullen is the best young quarter in football. And I just count all this crap about like looking at that draft class and being like, this is the best draft class they've ever had, ever. And it's like, okay, well, in 3 or 4 years, we'll see what the situation is. Well, we're 3 and 4 years later, and Max Crosby is the only player left.
Yeah.
This is what you have to. This is why I zoom out. This is why I zoom out, and my perspectives seem so off the wall and so different. But really, they're in line with the way a lot of people look at the Raiders. They're in line with the way a lot of people that don't root for the Raiders consistently or have so much emotion and like this impassioned life addictedness to, like, that's kind of what it is with me. And it's been that way for 30 years since I've been a Raider fan. But I'm not that guy anymore that just puts on the beer goggles and says, you know what, this is the best pick they could have ever made in this situation. I was that guy. I was the guy going on the NFL.com on comment articles from Chris Weisling. I don't know if you remember him. He buried the Raiders every year. And I would go on the NFL.com and just be like, just write these horrible comments and be like, you don't know what to tell you're talking about. You're just biased against the Raiders. You're biased against Al Davis. You're biased against Mark Davis. You're biased against all these. And then I just zoomed out and I said, you know what? This guy's literally right every year. Why is he right? Because he doesn't
Yeah.
view the Raiders' moves through the prism of, through the lens of, this is my team. So I have to be every single move is a steal. Every player is a dog. Every player is going to help the Raiders win a Super Bowl in 2 years. Every player is, I can't believe they got this guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. I can't believe they got Michael Gallup on a $3 million deal. He's just going to be an unbelievable pickup. And it's like, when you zoom out, you don't really look at that from that perspective. Now, is he a decent player for Dallas? Sure. But if you can't produce in one of the most high octane passing offenses in all of football with an all pro quarterback, Dak Prescott was second team all pro this year. And if you can't find a role in that situation, you're getting beat out by, 100-year-old Brandon Cooks, then is it really the best move that the Raiders could have possibly made in this situation? And is it going to be some move that is some pristine, unbelievable, off the top, offensive move? Probably not. And that's kind of the way I look at things in that situation. It's probably not going to be that situation. So, like I said, everything is going to be viewed through that from here on out. really, it's kind of what I've been doing for the last few years. It's probably why a lot of people don't like me, and a lot of people think that I'm high on myself and all that. Fine, like you're entitled to have that opinion about me as well. But if we're looking at through the last 5 years, I'd love for you to point to a lot of the things that I was wrong about with as it relates to Derek Carr, as it relates to draft classes with John Gruden, with transactions from Gruden and Mayock, with transactions from McDaniels and Ziegler, and now with transactions with Telesco. You can all say that I'm wrong about every pick that Telesco just made, and bringing in Luke Getzey is going to be fine to run this offense, and bringing in Brock Bowers and pairing him with a player you just drafted last year, your organization did at least, in that situation to pair them with that. You can tell me all day long these are going to be better moves and they know better than me and they always know better than what they're doing. That's fine. I'll be rooting for the Raiders long after Telesco's fired, long after Antonio Pierce is fired. I'll still be here critiquing the Raiders exactly the same way, because if nothing else, I'm consistent with my perspectives about the Raiders. If you do not draft a quarterback, if you do not consistently divert assets to that position, you are playing with just nothingness. You are lost in purgatory because you are not an organization to be taken seriously, because you do not take seriously the single most important position in all of sports, the position in which your entire league is revolved around, that is designed entirely for that position to be successful. And that's what it is. So when they don't want to bring me up in spaces and all that, that's kind of the reason why.
I would say this too. If the Raiders actually on the high end won 10 games or maybe even 11 games and they made the playoffs, are they a serious contender to win it all?
No, of course not.
I'm just saying, like, let's just say the AFC West quarterback and the AFC quarterbacks play all their games and they're healthy. Maybe you lose like a Tua or something like that, but everybody else is pretty much healthy. Like, can they win? Are they capable of getting a home playoff game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's something that you want to do as well. Like, you want to get some home playoff games as well too. So
yeah,
and this is
can you really look at this team and think that Aiden O'Connell is going to win 4 straight playoff games? Because they're not getting the number 1 seed. I mean, come on. Like, anybody who says suggest that is not even being a shill. They're just being a troll. But on the flip side of that, can Gardner Minshew win you 4 playoff games? It's likely not. I love Gardner Minshew. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Love the guy for the team. Absolutely love the idea of having him on, as a Raider. He's born to be a Raider. He's such a character. Is he going to be Ken Stabler? No, he's not going to be Ken Stabler. Ken Stabler was a multiple-time All-Pro, MVP, Super Bowl champion. He had a 14-1 season. He pioneered one of the great teams of all time. It's not going to be that situation. Can he be Rich Gannon? Likely not. Rich Gannon was also an MVP, a 2-time All-Pro. Like, you have to look at the percentages of these things actually happening with what all went right in that situation. Despite all his faults, John Gruden was one of the best offensive coaches of all time during that stretch, because he promoted that offense coming off a Reed system, but he just never adapted and evolved to bring it to the later contemporary game. But back in the 99 days, his offense was the cream of the crop. It was the top of the line, as evidenced by bringing in a guy like Rich Gannon and turning him into an all-pro quarterback. It's just the nature of this situation. It's sad to look at, because we all said this leading up to this situation. We could all be united in the way the Raiders handle this offseason. We could literally all be united and rooting one way. And now there's a lot of people that don't even care, because why should they? Why should they care about this season? Should they care when a team doesn't care about getting a quarterback? We had 6 of them go in the first round. It was never an option to get a quarterback. Fine. If that's the excuse you want to keep using, whatever. Then when they keep getting the 12th, 11th, 13th pick or 10th overall, and Andrew Luck doesn't fall to them there, and they keep passing on a quarterback to draft the next Cleveland Farrell or the next Josh Jacobs or the next Brock Bowers or whatever it is, and they keep not winning, you don't pretend that you don't understand why they don't. Don't sit there and pretend and take the confused approach, like, if they just did this, and this, we would be fine. If they had just won these last couple games, they would have been fine. If Gardner Minshew had just not thrown that last interception, then we would be the number 2 seed or some BS. It's all it is. You're taking mistakes in a microcosm in a game by game basis, But for me, I'm not doing that any longer. I'm zooming out to look at the landscape of the NFL. The landscape of the NFL is quarterback. The Raiders don't have one. They have the second worst quarterback situation in football right now in front of the Giants. And that's the end of it. That's just where we're at. You've got the Steelers, the Raiders, and the Giants that have the three worst situations for quarterback.
Do
There you are.
people understand? And I think, and for this is like I said, this is it's me and Solo. So if it's if it's too much of a bitch session, I'm sorry, but do you realize the bitching out session for the Raiders? But you realize how
it's a rant. We're pissed.
It's a rant.
We're pissed off.
Do you realize how perfect your team has to play to win games in the National Football League when you have this kind of setup offensively? Like they did not get better offensively. Like
they didn't.
Like the running back situation. I am all for the young running back, like going not allocating a bunch of money to that situation, but if they actually had more of a body of work for Zamir White, I'd feel a little bit better. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they were truly like him and Jacobs were truly like splitting carries, I feel a little bit better. But give him a chance. We'll see what happens. With that being said, Madison is not the veteran that you want that I wanted to see them go get. Like
he's not a good football player.
To play with him, like his runs, but it's like he's not like he really wasn't a good running back in Minnesota. So like that's not that's a problem. The DJ, we'll see what he is. We'll see if he can sit. We'll see if he can solidify himself at that right tackle position. But we got to see if that takes place first.
Here's my question.
Physically,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, physically, he looks like he could play the part, but we got to see him actually go out there and do it.
Leatherwood looked unbelievable in that second off season. Remember those workout videos for Leatherwood?
Yeah.
Cleveland Farrell looked awesome in that second off season when he was working out with Eric Armstead and those guys. Yeah, they all look great in shorts. You don't play against air in the regular season. My biggest question is, we're 9 games into the season. The Raiders are 3-6 or 4-5, and we're looking at the second to last place, wherever we're at in the AFC West. Now we're in a situation where Glaze is not starting. We're not getting anything from Richardson. Trey Taylor's not even on the team, or Devonshire's not even on the team. Eichenberg is getting rotational special teams plays, and Dylan Lobb is returning kicks. And Brock Bowers has 24 catches for 210 yards and no touchdowns. We're in this situation now, and JPJ is our best player that we drafted on that. We're 9 games in. The team is struggling offensively. And let's face it, they're not as good defensively as they were last year because they don't have as many Tommy DeVitos on the schedule as they did last year. So now we're in a situation where, okay, what are we supposed to be able to get out of this situation if they're 3-6 or 4-5, and the brutality of the schedule is actually coming up? Remember that we just went through this a year ago, or 2 years ago, whereas like the easiest part of the schedule, the Raiders really struggled on. And then the hardest part of the schedule was just the hardest part of the schedule. And, Derek Carr was benched by the end of, week 16 or whatever it was. It's like we just went through this. When you look at the schedule, when it actually comes out, you're going to see how difficult the schedule is going to be. And it's not going to be full of Tommy DeVitos and Zach Wilsons and Jaron Halls, Nick Mullins anymore. It's not going to be filled with those guys, or Gardner Minshew because he's on our team. It's going to be filled with first-round quarterbacks. It's going to be filled with guys that their teams believe in that is a long-term. It's going to be filled with Deshaun Watson, who's trying to have a rebound year. It's going to be full of Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. It's going to be full of Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, which is another, just pairing those two together just makes them better, just makes each other better. It's the best coach that Justin Herbert's ever had in his entire football life. And that is the best quarterback that Jim Harbaugh's had since Andrew Luck at Stanford. It's just like, you cannot tell me that that's a bad situation to be in, or that you don't want that situation for your own team, because we do. We should want that. We should want a quarterback and a prominent coach, or at least, at the very least, a quarterback to pair him with Antonio Pierce, who might develop into a prominent coach. It's just the nature of what this season is going to be. It's going to tell us a lot, because right now everybody thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and our team progressed and none of the other 31 teams in the NFL got better. And it's like it's always this happening. It's a rude awakening, whether if it's Elias Trejo or whoever, Raider Honcho or a graphic Raider, all these guys that are telling us that this is going to be awesome and this offense is going to be spectacular and all these guys are going to be good. And then we're 10 games in the season and none of that comes true.
I think
Then what?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like to me, it's more along the lines of just like when you hear the interview with Devontae Adams um and
Max Crosby.
Max Crosby, you just love those dudes. Like
Yeah.
you generally like you don't know them personally, but as for sports love goes, you love watching those dudes play.
Yeah.
They give every single even if they make a mistake in the game, it's like they give every single ounce of everything. I mean, this dude's playing almost died on the field. Like playing on one leg almost the whole year because he
Yeah.
loves it so much and he loves the Raiders so much. So like when you hear that, like the last thing you want to be dealing with is like not having them play really meaningful games. That's the reason why they do this stuff. So they can
Yeah.
play meaningful games down the stretch of a season. They play meaningful games where they can battle for division championships. Like if you're not like he I mean Devontae's been here for a couple of years now, like and we've never been able to put a team together that where we thought we could, you know, contend for the title, the AFC West title, and it's just to me that's the part that hurts. They actually have a roster, while not perfect, could literally when they get off the bus, they can play with pretty much anybody if they had a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, they really truly could. Wilkins up
Yeah.
front. I mean, Kuntz, Max Crosby, in the system. Spillane and company played well at linebacker last year. Jack Jones played well last year. I mean, the secondary, but you got Nate Hobbs in the slot doing his thing. Like they really had pieces. They really have pieces to make you feel like, oh my god, like yo, for real. Like if they get any kind of really good play from the quarterback position, they could contend. And now you're sitting here saying like, they didn't do what they had to do. They didn't allocate the fund. I mean, allocate whatever they had to do to get it. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I do want to start real quick. Let's just take it piece by piece here. How does Brock Bowers fit into a Luke Getsy offense? What are your projections for him? I think that people don't understand that, like, as much as we want to put him in the generational class, and his tape is phenomenal, and he plays in the best conference in all of college football. So I understand that 100%. But there has been a learning curve and a little bit of a stop to the success of rookie tight ends who usually come along the way down the road, not necessarily in rookie seasons.
Yeah. You know who looks like a generational talent right now? It's Sam Laporta. Drafted in the second round. He was the third tight end drafted last year. Behind Kincaid and I think one other person went, and then it was Laporta and Michael Mayer in that situation. So I mean, you look at how that is going. They're set up with Bowers to be successful in this offense specifically. Cole Kmet had his best years under this Luke Getsy system by far. Cole Kmet was a talented tight end, I believe, coming out of Notre Dame, drafted, I think, in the second round. I can't remember if it was the second or third round, but he's a good player, and he clearly had the best year of his career under this system. So it's going to be, if he's going to be the starter right away, the primary passing option at the tight end position for this team moving in there, I expect him to have a decent year. But if it's going to be Mayer instead, or they're going to be run a lot of primary twos between them, with Devontae Adams still being a target hog on the outside, then you have to believe that the upside for their passing game is going to be limited based on the tight end position. And historically, tight ends have been absolutely miserable in their first years. It's just the way it is. A lot of tight ends don't come in and be Sam Laporta or Rob Gronkowski and have 10 touchdowns as a rookie. That's not how it works in situations like this. And granted, you want to say that he's generational and you want him to produce that way, but if we're having this conversation next year where everybody was saying that he's a generational prospect, but he ends up with 30 catches for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or whatever it is, then we're going to be looking back at this pick and being like, well, Did they try hard enough to get a quarterback because now we have a tight end who's not producing the same way that the other tight end wasn't producing his rookie year? Or is it going to be like, well, now that we're going to have to get that guy a quarterback so he can play better? It's like that was part and parcel of the problem this last year. It's the same circular situation every year with the Raiders, and it's the same problems they have. You don't get enough production at a quarterback. You don't get the wins that matter the most because your quarterback is not good enough to get them for you. And so, in terms of the Brock Bowers situation, yes, he absolutely fits. He like primary tight end. You need a big, a strong, athletic, super athletic tight end with good hands. That's what Brock Bowers is. I made it very clear he's a really great player. I just don't think it's a great pick for the Raiders because of the circumstances surrounding quarterback. You did not have to wait until pick 13 to realize that no quarterbacks were going to be available to you. Teams trade up all the time, and you can't tell me that no offer, everybody was going to dismiss every single offer that was ever done. And then you're going to tell me all these articles that the Raiders tried to trade up, quote unquote. Fine. But in terms of specifically just the fit, it's a good fit. He should be productive in the system. I hope so. They're going to need him. So
Yeah. I just don't know. And you spoke about target share with Devontae Adams on the outside. I'm just asking, like, how many targets do y'all think are in this offense? This is not Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne type Dallas Clark type situation. This is literally two guys who on let's be honest, on good teams will be backups.
yeah,
and who are going to be trying to be thrust in a situation where the pressure is going to be on to get the ball to Devontae. We all know Devontae has slammed his helmet and done more histrionics than we have ever seen him do with the Raiders, because he's had some of his best games with the Raiders. He's had some of his worst games he's ever had in his career, like the one catch, 3 yards against Arizona, like all this stuff like that. I mean, he's had some really awful games, not by his standard because of his play, but just because, whether it was, McDaniels or whoever, they just didn't, they couldn't get, they couldn't get him the football. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. All I was going to say is this entire offense is going to run through the run game. It's going to only be successful if the Raiders have a successful run game. If you do not have a successful run game and Madison and Zeus end up not being the guy, I mean, Zeus has to be the guy, because if he's not the guy, it's not Madison and it's not Lob. So if it's not Abdullah. So if Zeus actually does not do well in this offensive system, and the running game is 27 through 32nd or 26 through 32nd, your pass game is going to be very, 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 I would say, dependent on that. And it's going to be also bad because then you're going to be like looking at a situation where the team knows you can't run the football. So you're going to be able to be defended the pass like hard, way more consistently and way more diverted assets and scheme wise to stop the passing game, because you know that Gardner Minshew is not going to be able to go through his 4 progressions and get to Jacoby Myers, who might be 3rd or 4th in line, or Michael Mayer in that situation. So I think that's what the primary problem is going to be. If the run game fails, don't expect the pass game to be uplifted in that situation. And remember, Getsy had a good running offense, right, over the last 2 years. You don't have 1,700 yards coming from the quarterback anymore. That's gone. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell from this point out probably won't rush for 1,700 yards combined for the rest of their entirety of their careers. And Justin Fields gave you that in 2 seasons at the quarterback position. So now you're looking at a guy who has to be a premier rushing play caller without the benefit of having a quarterback who can get you really, really like a really, really extensive yardage with his legs. You're never getting that out of Minshew or O'Connell. So can you be a premium running play caller with really a guy who's a prove-it guy, another guy in Madison who's not very good in any capacity, whether he's starting or backing up? He's just not that good. And without quarterbacks who run the ball for you. And so the passing game in this situation, I mean, we could be looking at a situation right now where we're at the end of this year and we have the 26th ranked scoring offense, the 23rd passing offense with the 29th rushing offense. But then again, they won 7 games because their defense got them in the positions to win, or Devontae won them a game by himself, or maybe Gardner Minshew has a field day in one of these games. Then we're going to be in the exact same situation we were at this year. Exactly the same. too far out to take one of the top guys and have to hope and pray that the Raiders can trade up for a quarterback in the first round next year. Or it'll just be the same stuff we're having conversations about. Everybody's going to tell me how wrong I am that they didn't draft a quarterback again, and then the results are going to be exactly the same. The Raiders don't win anything, and we're stuck having the same cyclical conversation every single year, year after year after year. It's just the
Yeah.
same bullshit
Yeah.
every year until they draft a quarterback.
I think the one thing about this offense is, and you mentioned it before, I think it's going to be so balance dependent. Like
It really is.
it really is balance dependent because you're going to have a hard. This the offense is going to be, and I know people are going to say, "Oh my God, these guys with the doom and gloom." It's just reality of the situation. Like they
Zoom
can't
out.
they can't like the reason like one of the things that's incredible about Patrick Mahomes is his record when he's down in games. Like
Mm-hmm.
he actually has like a winning record when he's down in the fourth quarter or down in the second half of games, which is
Double digit
crazy.
scores.
Yeah, the double just scores all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This team is NBA. It would be dirty. It'd be like they get down 17-7, 14 nothing. It could be. Not saying lights out. It's just gonna be. It's gonna be hard. They don't have many style. I think Raider fans could at least agree on this. We don't have many ways to win with this offense. Like they have to run the football. Got to be play action. Got to be quick passing with the occasional bomb here and there to Devontae or Tucker. Like that's the way, and then obviously Brock Bowers as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's part of this whole deal. Like we have to see if that is going to be something that's really going to possibly work for them because that's what they have to do because they can't like them getting into a shootout is going to be that not that they can't do it, but like this is gonna that's not
They're
gonna be
not
easy.
built for a shootout, and they're
They're
certainly not
not
built
built for
to
that.
come from behind. They're just
They're,
not.
they're,
We're in the same
yeah.
Derek Carr era that we were with Derek Carr. You don't have an offense that's built to come from behind. You just not. You just not don't have an offense that's built to come back down 14-0 or
Yeah.
14-3 or 14-6. It's just it is what it is.
It's what it is. It is what it is. But Carr was Captain Comeback, wasn't he? We are going to
Nice wins against 1-15 Jets
yeah,
teams.
exactly. Um, we're gonna call it. We'll call it a night on the Signal Caller this week. What we're gonna do with this show, because like I do want to continue the show, is we're gonna talk next week about like what ranking the best fits for those quarterbacks,
Yeah.
those six quarterbacks who got drafted above what the Raiders pick. And then we'll talk about, and then we'll talk about Jackson. We'll go through the Raiders picks that way and just kind of look at Jackson Powers Johnson, who's probably everybody's favorite
Love the guy.
Raider
Absolutely
pick.
love the guy.
Somebody talked about him being like comparable to Richie Incognito. I think he's better than Richie Incognito. Richie Incognito was just zone blocking. That was it. He would as big as he would get moved in the power game. So
Yeah.
but I do like Jackson Powers Johnson a lot. So we'll see if that is if we're kind of and I'll break out some film from Oregon because Oregon has plenty of film
Yeah.
to look at. So as far as that goes, all right, Ray Nation. I know that this is part and parcel of what you would thought you would hear from
This is the
us.
fallout, man. We're pissed off. It just is. Like we're disappointed
But
that the team
I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off for 98 and I'm pissed off for 17
yeah,
because they deserve to play.
they're not getting any younger.
They deserve to play in big games.
Yeah.
Like, they deserve to play in big games. So we'll see.
Well, that's the thing. If people are resigning themselves to the idea that the Raiders are not going to compete this year, what does that say to your star players? What does that say to Devontae Adams, who's going to be 32 next year, making $34 million a year? What's that say to Max Crosby, who kills himself every single year
and
to
almost
produce
killed
for this
himself
team?
Literally.
Literally, his knee was the side of a watermelon. He's getting his knee drained, quite literally every single week. He was literally dealing with infections on his knee. His knee was blown up every single week. He was still going out there and producing at an all-pro level.
Can I say one thing about it too? Is like, as much as we love Brock Bowers, right? And I know I'm not a medical person, I'm not a doctor, but maybe, just maybe, the Raiders could have thought about a Latu at 13, only because hey, is Max the way Max plays is that sustainable
Sure.
for the next 3, the 4, the 5 years?
Yeah.
I'm just saying like I said, we zoom out on this show. Like maybe maybe that would have been something to think about. Like getting him less snaps,
Yeah.
and forcing him off the field with a guy who we think is just who actually models his game after,
Yeah.
who loves. I mean, like that would have been like I was all in for going in all in on defense at that point because everybody. I wanted Latu or Quentin Mitchell. I this one the Brock Bowers pick took me for a ride. I did not think that was anywhere on their radar whatsoever. But
Yeah.
like I said,
Latu was my live draft pick at 13. So when I looked
yeah,
at the field when they got on the board, and obviously there were no quarterbacks left, I took
yeah,
Latu at 13.
yeah. I
So
mean, listen, we'll see. We'll see. Like it's not that we hate Brock Bowers, but I just kind of think it was a luxury pick for the Raiders in that spot. So
there are too many what ifs for this offense going into 2024, and too many answers. There are too many unanswered questions for us to be. Let's be super excited about an offense that we don't know if Zeus is going to be good. We don't know if the running game is going to be good. We don't know if Getsy's going to be good. We don't know if
yep,
Antonio Pierce is going to be good through the season.
exactly,
We don't know
exactly.
if Jacoby Myers is going to get shaded up by by the target share that Brock Bowers is going to house, or the tight end position in general is going to house. Is that going to cover up Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers? What if Devontae Adams is actually regressing from year on out? Maybe what if he's turning into AJ Green instead of being Devontae Adams again? There are way too many question marks on this offense for us to be like, well, this is going to be a 10, 11, 12 win team. Come on. Like, be real. Be serious. Be serious about your fandom. Like, seriously, just zoom out, look at the landscape of the NFL, and we'll have a conversation about this again in 10 weeks or in week 10.
And on that note, you guys enjoy your night. Star Wars fans, enjoy the 4th, all those things like that. We'll see you next time.